Welcome, everybody, to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I am your host, Jason Verlinde, and that, of course, is John Rauhaus playing in the background. Every week on this show, I talk to someone I love from the world of guitars. I love sharing their stories with you. And this week, I'm talking to Ryan Richter, a guitarist who is such a huge part of the Fretboard Journal community. I don't even know where to begin. Some 15 plus years ago, he was my first employee here at the Fretboard Journal in Seattle. He's always been an exceptional guitarist and lap steel player and just an awesome, hardworking human being. I put him to work doing all sorts of things. He answered the phone, he edited our videos, he wrote for us, and all the while, he was steering the magazine towards some incredible artists that we ended up checking out and featuring. Ryan eventually moved to California. He is the main reason the Fretboard Journal has been hip to folks like G. Weller, Bell Brigade, Dawes, Blake Mills, and so many others early in their careers. He is one of those incredible friends who has his ears to the ground and has such great music taste. And yes, on the G. Weller front, he was the host of The Mystery of G. Weller podcast from 2023. That was his, investigative journalism debut for us. Ryan has played with so many great artists over the years, Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, Ryan Beatty, Dijon, so many others. He's about to go out on the road with Lizzy McAlpine. And the reason that I'm finally talking officially to Ryan on the podcast is because after the last 2 decades of backing up other artists on lap steel or guitar, Ryan has just put out his first music project under his own name. It's called Number One. And it consists of one 20-minute long track called As Good a Place as Any, No Hard Feelings. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on all the streaming platforms. I'll include links. It's also available for pre-order on vinyl right now. I'll include a link to that in the show notes as well. It's just gorgeous. It's a mostly instrumental suite. There are movements to it. I didn't see this coming. I wanted to ask Ryan all about it. Ryan is an unsung hero of the Fretboard Journal and the LA guitar scene right now. And it's so fun to get his story and to share it with you all and to hear about this record. We talk about it. We talk about how he recorded it. We talk about his current touring rig, the story of the album cover, which is pretty wild. We talk about Ry Cooder, huge influence, and so much more. I hope you enjoy our chat. I'm going to add, Ryan is coming to our Fretboard Summit this year. Ryan is one of the many talented individuals who takes time out of his busy schedule to come to our summit every year in Chicago. We're going to put him to work once again. We're going to hear him play. I'd love for you to be able to see him and hear this record in person. Go to fretboardsummit.org to register for our annual guitar gathering. It takes place August 23rd to 25th in Chicago at the Old Town School of Folk Music. We've just announced our headliners. They include the one and only Blake Mills, Joe Henry, Colin Hay, and Valerie June. John Leventhal, we haven't even announced it yet, is coming. He's going to teach a workshop. Josh Scott's going to be there. Rhett Scholl tells me he's going to be there. Former podcast guest Matt Sweeney of Guitar Moves fame tells me he's going to try to make it on the builder front. So many builders, it's insane. Martin Guitars is going to be there. Chris Martin IV is talking. Bob Taylor of Taylor Guitars will be there. Chase Bliss, Collings, Bourgeois. I could go on, but I won't. There are like 100 names that have been featured in the Fretboard Journal or on this podcast who are all going to be there. And you can meet them all. There's no other event in the world that takes place that has this many Fretboard Journal subjects, Fretboard Journal artists, great people you can learn from. Register at fretboardsummit.org. We're pulling out all the stops this year. Obviously, we have a magazine. That's why the Fretboard Journal podcast exists. Go subscribe to the magazine at fretboardjournal.com. We are also brought to you this week by Peghead Nation, my favorite music instruction portal around. Get your first month free or $20 off any annual subscription with the promo code Fretboard when you check out. Isotope is offering you all 10% off their products with the discount code FRET10. If you're doing any audio recording, RX10 is where you should be looking. It's a joy to use. It will save you hours. Try it out. Stringjoy Strings out of Nashville, Tennessee, the new cool indie string company sponsoring the show. You can get 10% off your first order with the discount code Fretboard. They've got mandolin strings now too. Hopefully you knew that, and electric and acoustic guitar strings. StewMac is sponsoring the show once again. When I go to a luthier's shop, like 90% of the tools are StewMac tools. But you don't need to be a luthier to appreciate their offerings. You can get a pad for your guitar a professional soft pad for when you change strings. You can get polishing stuff. You can get a kit if you want to take up lutherie or learn how to build an amp. They have so much cool stuff. Go to StewMac, tell them the Fretboard Journal sent you. And then last but not least, we've had Mike Ball from Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar on this podcast. He's been talking about these Japanese market-only guitars that they get. Mike is literally, as I speak, returning from Japan with a whole bunch of guitars that are going to be popping up on the mmguitarbar.com website or their Instagram. Follow them now. See them when they come. There's going to be some cool stuff, I guarantee it. Those are our sponsors. And now I get to talk to a dear friend of the Fretboard Journal and share his story with you all, Ryan Richter. Check out this album. Go find a quiet place to listen to it with no distractions. It's a beautiful thing. I hope you enjoy it. Ryan Richter, welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here in these circumstances. They never said it would happen, or they said it would never happen.
The original Fretboard Journal employee going back, what are we talking, 14, 15 years ago? Yeah.
Actually, I got a little, I very rarely look at Facebook, but when I did the other day because Facebook Marketplace has become a real hotspot for gear here in LA. Mm-hmm. I got a reminder, or I was notified that you and I have been friends, dude, for 15 years.
Lovely.
Yeah. And that would coincide almost immediately with when I started working for you.
Yeah. Well, happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. Feels good.
You've always been sort of the Fretboard Journal's secret weapon. You've known about bands that I would have never found out about. You've turned us on to interesting instruments, and I appreciate it. I think our readers and podcast listeners, even if they don't know, owe you a debt of gratitude for all that you've turned us on to over the years.
Man, that's nice to hear, and I appreciate that. I seem to have I've had a pretty good, consistent, era of good fortune here as far as just being around people that are inspiring, and especially every day. And since I moved back to Southern California, it's only gotten crazier because everyone down here has all of these wild instruments and these. I don't know. It's like I'm on a gig with Mason Stoops right now, and his rack is it's like a lifetime's worth of sounds.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a cool thing to be able to be around and kind of take notes from and get inspired in that way.
Yeah. And just to kind of wrap this intro up, you were based up here in Seattle. We're going back now almost 2 decades, not quite. You were working for us. You were teaching guitar. You had a ton of connections down in Southern California already. Played with the Dawes guys, various others. You took the leap of faith, moved down there to pursue music, and especially over the last 5 years, your work as a side person has just been phenomenal. Do you want to recount some of the folks you've been playing with?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been, and I'm not trying to sound, braggy, but there has been a ton, but I think the real meat and potatoes of it that you're talking about is, I guess the thing that's really been interesting for me is years ago when I moved back down, I was introduced to these really young guys named Henry Kwapis and Jack Karaszewski. And at the time, I think they were they were college age, but when I met them, we maybe met at a show or something, and they're both really charismatic and funny and cool. And Henry I was seeing him at the time play drums a lot with people around town. He's just a remarkable drummer, and I was so blown away by him. And we exchanged numbers, and then they asked me to come do a session for this project they had called Dessert. And for anyone, well, actually, I mean, if you're a fan of Dijon, which I'll get to next, you would know who Dessert is. It's the project that Jack and Henry had leading up to. I guess it was just a part of their development, but I went over to one of their parents' house to do a session, And like, it was such early days that, you know, it was all out of one laptop. They handed me their wired white Apple headphones to use as monitoring. You know, it was the most bare bones thing ever. But when I put the headphones in and they pressed play, I just kind of like, I was so blown away because the song that I recorded on is called Thunderbird. And I had never heard music like that before. And it was so interesting. And so it seemed just like years ahead of anything else that I had heard. And, you know, that anyone that gets wind of that, because it's all that music is still up and available to listen to, but I think everyone has the same reaction where it's like you get a little taste and you start to, it's mind blowing music, and you start to kind of see the origin story for everything that came after that, which, kind of, I guess, back to the point here, I stayed in touch with them, and we've, you know, played every now and then, or, you know, at the very least, just kind of compared notes, talked about music, what we're up to. And I got a call from Henry asking me if I would want to support this artist in the filming of a live movie that they were going to make. Henry and Jack had been producers on this record, and Jack was going to direct the movie. Jack is a true multi-talented person, and I had never heard of this guy. The guy's name was Dijon, and I'd never heard any of his music. I had never met him, but when I did, it was day one of rehearsal for this film, and same kind of reaction. Like, I just was completely blown away by what he was doing and his vision. And I really think that, you know, I mean, it's like even still, like I hung out with him the other day, just trying to work on some new music and get ideas down. And it's like that whole crew of people is just a really fascinating batch of guys for me, because they work in an interesting way, and they're seemingly completely untethered to any sort of traditional process, that's for sure. And everything that comes out of it is just so cool to me, and it's like so exciting and electrifying. And I mean, I guess this is a long way of me saying, like, that introduction and that collaboration has been the thing that has kind of really made my my dreams come true, man. I mean, the amount of response that I continue to get for even this film that we made, which is called Absolutely, years ago, it's still, you know, I get, to my girlfriend's chagrin, like I get recognized way more often than I ever thought I would years after the fact of doing something. And, you know, people are still moved by it, and it kind of propels me to do what I'm doing now, which is I'm about to go on tour with a young woman named Lizzy McAlpine, who I'm really a big fan of, and kind of similar arc. Like, I was unaware of her music before we met, but we made a record with her, and that's incredible. And she's a she's a really inspiring person, and she's also really gives me a lot of hope and optimism for people's music appreciation of younger generations moving forward. Because, you know, the paradigm that she performs and writes in, I guess you could call it singer-songwriter or even pop at some moments, but like, the truth of her is that she is a deep, deep, deep musical mind. And when she, you know, I don't know if anyone knows this, but she told us that when she went to Berkeley, that she was the vocal lead in the Pat Metheny ensemble, like in the Berkeley's Pat Metheny ensemble, you know, which means that, you know, you can put whatever kind of sheet music in front of her, she can just crush it vocally or on piano, and I don't know. She's a real talent, and it's amazing to watch her do her thing. And I've been playing a lot with a guy named Ryan Beatty recently, who's also just a major force, great, incredibly smart musical mind. And he made an amazing record with my friend Ethan Greska called Calico, which is the record that we've been touring in support of. And man, I don't know. It's just it's been a really nice time, and I'm grateful to be working with true friends and people that are inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, every project you've been on has been simply incredible. And it's been great to go to some of these shows. And we did the thing with Dijon's band, the video that continues to get more comments than nearly every other video we've ever posted to our channel.
That's cool.
In each of these roles, I mean, I don't know about the Lizzy one, but like, I hate to use this descriptor, but like you sort of play the role of the Ry Cooder or the David Lindley. You bring your lap steel. You also bring your guitar. You kind of sometimes lead guitar, but more this sort of like coloring. Is that kind of your wheelhouse?
I'd say so. Yeah. Like I, especially in the Lizzy project, because I am, Mason is anyone who's listening and knows the name Mason Stoops knows that he's an incredible player. He's also the musical director of the band, and he's carrying a pretty heavy load as far as not only having to perform really essential parts of the songs on guitar, but also like he's the, I mean, not like this totally matters, but he's the one guitar player. There's three of us. There's me, Tyler Nuffer, who plays pedal steel, and then Mason. But of the three of us, he's the one who's tonally setting the stage too. Like he's got a pretty elaborate stereo image coming off of his amps, and that's great. But you know, you can't really have too many of those happening at once.
Sure.
And so, yeah, my job is to be this kind of like I try to almost be like this like sidechain compression of sound that just kind of like keeps everything moving along in a way that's hopefully pleasing and exciting when need be. And the same was kind of true for Dijon. Like I would step out and take some solos too, but for anyone that's familiar with that music or saw any of the shows on the tours, like there's a pretty incredible, the palette of sound is incredibly diverse. Mm-hmm. So whether it's Mike with this like, huge baritone guitar sound that he has, or Jack processing our stuff through a modular rig, like, you know, there's not a lot of room to be I don't want to say a traditional guitarist, but the thing that I do naturally, which is like, I love to just like float on top of things. I get the green light to do it in both of those things because I think, I mean, honestly, there's no other option. Like it's the perfect job for me because like, I don't need to play, you know, I don't need to be a rhythm guitar player, which is, I love doing, but like, there's just Mason's got it and Jack's got it and Mike's got it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I really, it's funny. It's like, they're perfect roles for me because the kind of music I gravitate towards anyway tends to just kind of exist in that paradigm anyway.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in the Dijon video, like one of my most inspiring and all-time favorite musicians is Greg Lease.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, if you listen to his catalog, like it's certainly not to say that he doesn't take orchestrated upfront composed runs or you know, he takes the head on a ton of stuff, but the thing I really love about his playing most is how he just is able to exist within the architecture of everything that's moving along and just kind of always be complimentary and cool.
Yeah. What was your gear setup for the Ryan Beatty shows?
That so I did have a traditional-ish guitar sound, but the thing is that because Ryan's voice he sings in such a way that's Lizzy too. Like they're both incredible singers and they can both project, but they like to exist in a pretty intimate way. So their vocal mics are both incredibly hot. And so the solution that with Ryan, our front of house guy, this guy named Jesse Honig. He has a really cool pedal company, by the way, called 29 Pedals. Believable Audio, I think, is like the what you call like the parent company, but he makes great stuff. And he's a really smart guy. And he thought that the way that we would beat this and kind of play it safe is to use these. Like I was using a Universal Audio Dream pedal, which is like a deluxe reverb in a box. But before that, we were all going through this kind of like spider web of really nice studio DIs and mic pre's. So Mason was going through like a pair of Neve inspired microphone preamps. And it sounded incredible. And then we also, Fender was nice enough to give us this new product that they have, which are like powered speaker cabinets. And we were using those as our, I mean, it was kind of nuts actually, but like we were using it as our like traveling monitor rig. And it's all Jesse's idea. And it's at the beginning, we were all kind of like, oh man, like we just want to use small amps. Like they're so cool. But I have to say, like, I was resistant to the fake amp thing or not having an amp in general. And then as the nights went on, like the proof of concept was just continually validated. And sometimes it really just does make sense to not be challenging the artist's own fidelity as far as like bleeding into their vocal microphone or something like that.
Sure.
But the other thing that I was doing was the guys at Chase Bliss are extremely nice to me, and they sent me a bunch of their pedals, and I had this idea to run like a kind of like Jack, actually a lot like Jack, but using different tools. I would trap certain parts of my playing into these 4 or 5 Chase Bliss pedals, and I would have that running off of a little mixer that I could kind of like dub in and out and fly in these little I don't know what you call them, just these kind of like little spurts of audio. And I've been inspired by, certainly Daniel Lanois has made a career out of trapping and remanipulating audio in this way.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of his sound. And then also just like, I've always had like a real fascination and love of old dub music.
Sure.
And I think that approach to using effects is kind of the best, is kind of the coolest one. And it's not to say that you can't get a lot done with pedals on the ground, but I don't know. There's just something that's really cool about being able to be way more hands-on with it. And and it's like once you start doing it, it's funny because it's certainly less time that you have your hands on your instrument. But, I think in the Ryan band and whenever else I try to do it, I think it's been cool because it makes me realize like there's other ways to get the message across, and maybe I don't actually have to be playing hand on string the entire time.
Yeah.
No.
The actual guitar in hand, though, that's old school tech?
Yeah, I mean, it is. My guitars are pretty, even though I fantasize about getting like weird old Kleins and like, I one day do want to take that plunge.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expensive plunge to take, but I want to do it. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really gone down the road of having anything too exotic as far as the guitars are concerned. I play a Jazzmaster. I play this incredible Jazzmaster that I got from, I'm about to let everyone in on a secret.
Okay.
But there's a music store in Kyoto called Kinko Music that does these factory special runs from Fender. And I just can't believe how good they are. And they're very easy to import, and they're cheap. And I think that this guitar that I have is this like amazing kind of like, it's a Sherwood Green Jazzmaster and kind of the guitar of my dreams for a long time. I've been mostly a jazz master guy for a while, but I don't know. People should be aware of that place and check out their site, because they do get new runs in, and they're selling through them pretty quick. But they're fun guitars to be aware of. And then beyond that, on the Ryan tour, I had a national dynamic that I bought from an old student who found it in an Ojai, basically like junk store, for $100.
Nice.
And it's a true dream guitar, and a real, I don't know. It's kind of one of my favorite things that I own.
Yeah.
And I still do. I play my lap steel that I made while I lived in Seattle a good deal. And this year, I'm so happy to report that the tours, we go back and forth between touring with Ryan and Lizzy until between now and December. And the cool thing about that for me is that everyone's running such a professional operation that I get to leave 2 guitars with both camp. So Lizzy will have my Jazz Master and my National and my lap steel that I made, and another Jazz Master will kind of live with Ryan, so that I never have to lug anything through an airport this year.
Incredible.
Which is so good. It seems like that's what makes it feel like I really made it.
Yeah, you are fully in the big time now.
Yeah, feels good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is all to say that, for the last decade plus, you've been accompanying these incredible artists and making great music, helping them make great music. And then the other day you unleashed this album suite. What do we call it? It's not a song cycle because there's only one track, and it's all you.
Yeah, it is. I think maybe, you can't call it a song cycle. I don't know what, I don't know how to classify it other than to say it is this collection of, it's a collection of these really, really tiny ideas that I've been toying with for the last several years. And, it's like, I'm one of these, the way that I relate to music is like, and sometimes I wish it was different, but I don't know. I just feel like it's what I was meant to do or something. But I can play guitar all day, and it's a favorite thing for me to do. It's the only thing that I can do all day and just love it. But as far as deliberate idea generation, I'm not the best. But, I think writers can agree with this, like, or anyone that's, maybe you're writing a stand-up routine or something, but you throw all these ideas at the wall and you just continue to do things repetitively. And then, if you're recording it, you can listen back the next day and you'll find a couple good and strong ideas in there. And so this is to say, I'm really pretty, my practice regimen is pretty all over the place. I don't really have any sort of direction. I just grab a guitar and whatever happens, happens. And luckily I had this realization the other day, or like last year, when I started compiling all this stuff in a cohesive way, that it was kind of shocking once I listened to 3 all together, because at the beginning they were completely unrelated, or so I thought. And then I realized that there was a very consistent thing that would tie all of these little motifs together. And that was, they all had a constant use of the open B string, either in melodic lines or in chord voicings. And so that kind of struck me, and I realized I could start sort of cobbling it together in a way that felt like an actual composition. And then I had a true breakthrough, which really was the thing that made me stitch it all together in a cohesive way that made it feel like it really had this cool arc. And it wasn't coming together until I saw on Instagram this ad for a rolling capo. And I thought, like, that guy looks like he's having a nice time. Like, that product looks like it's really working well. So I bought this rolling capo, and then I realized that I could move the roll of the open B string from a fretted to a non-fretted note in the middle of a song. And it kind of blew my mind. It felt like, in a way, like that's the most like technologically advanced thing that I use in my guitar playing. And so to play the entire suite of music that you heard, I tuned my guitar down to D standard. I have the capo on fret 2. And then as the pieces go on, I will move it from fret 2 to fret 1 and then finally behind the nuts so that the piece finishes with me playing guitar in D standard. But like I said, it's all the B string. It's all the way that the B string exists. And I didn't realize that I had a piece of music on my hands, a 20-minute piece of music on my hands, until I got this weird rolling capo from Instagram.
Okay. So the rolling capo, I'm sure just you uttering the word rolling capo, we'll all see the ad in our feed thanks to the algorithm and the AI overlords. But who makes it? Man,
this is the bummer. I could actually find it right now, but and I think anyone can, like, it's extreme. It's probably one of one.
Okay.
But it's very easy to tell who's making it because, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening, if you're a guitar player and you exist on Instagram, you've probably been fed the ad for the rolling capo because it's this older guy. He's a good player, but he's got this, like, he looks like he kind of has like a wizard vibe, like really well maintained and consistently straight gray hair.
Okay.
And he's basically Travis picking through a series of fret positions.
Okay.
And they're good. I think they're really cool. And I think, like, you know, a lot of guitar players in LA right now are using and deeply embracing like guitar tech that came in the 90s and 2000s, which is like a bunch of these like Roland products and stuff like that. But one of those things that those products do, which is really cool, is it allows you to change tuning on the fly, like the global tuning of your guitar, you know, through a synthesis basically. And I think that's really cool. I just think like this is really scratching that itch for me right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the open B thing, like every guitarist has like a trick or two that they just kind of lean on. Looking back, like, is the open B string always been in your arsenal, or it's just these little motifs that you recorded all had that in common?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, but like I think that I'm a huge, like, Bill Frisell is a huge inspiration to me, and also a guitar player named Wayne Krantz, who is really, they're both really gifted at using open strings in their chord voicings. And I guess like some, you know, I mean, like, yeah, for sure they use them in like runs too, or maybe melodic statements, but I think that's what makes their approach to chord playing really special, those two particularly. And so, I mean, yes, it has been a thing that I do for a long time because I'm trying to get in their space. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think like in as much as anyone believes in ideas being sent to people or given to people, like the ideas that really resonate with me that I do think to a degree are like sent to me from somewhere. They all, I don't know why, but they all have the open B string in them.
Okay.
It's weird. And it's the thing that like has allowed me, and you know, it's not that the song even stays in the same key the whole time. Like there's lots of movement and it's like it's a pretty diverse little journey, but couldn't go on that journey without the open B string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the track, the album, the 20-minute long EP, this one track, whatever you want to call it, As Good a Place as Any, it has more than you on it. Like there's a whole band.
Oh yeah.
Was it recorded in one cohesive take?
I wish I could say that it was, but it's not.
Okay.
But what I can say is that each movement, which is there, when you listen a few times, like they're pretty easy to tell one from the other. Tyler Nuffer and I, who is my dear friend and like most dedicated collaborator on this project, he's the pedal steel player, and you know, he and I would really try to make each movement or section be played as one. So like when you hear us play, the first section, the second section, those are not necessarily back to back, but they are in and of themselves. They're live performed.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the nature of us, I mean, I have to say, like, just a complete shout out to Tyler. Tyler Nuffer is one of the great pedal steel players on earth right now. He's also a very gifted engineer. He recorded and engineered the record for me. He's got a cool studio at his house in Pasadena. It's called Nuffer Ranch, which is a great place to hang out and make music. But the thing that I really have to just thank him for is, like, I had these pieces so I was so non-negotiable about how they were going to be portrayed. And I'm so bad at articulating the extensions of chords, like, especially when you're going through a guitar and pedal steel, like it gets pretty dense pretty fast. So I didn't really have the best and most pointed way of explaining to him what I wanted, but he was excited by it, and we just went exhaustively, basically measure to measure, and composed the entire thing with him. So, like, I had already done it the way that I wanted to do it. There was no breaking away from what I wanted. But then, yeah, he just, like, was up for it, and it's pretty dense. It's like basically like as close to a chamber piece as I'll ever dream of writing.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that, or a soundtrack to a short film or something. Was there a story there behind the scenes as you kind of weaved these snippets together, where you're like, here's the narrative in my head?
There wasn't a story as much as there was to be honest, I, for the last couple years, have been pretty, I don't want to say consumed, but, like, I live a wonderful life. I'm, like, looking at palm trees right now in LA. Like, I don't really have very much to complain about, but I am oftentimes pretty aghast at like some developments in the world. Like, we're in a rough spot. Like, there's tons of stuff to be worried about, and it's very easy to think catastrophically about, like, the direction that any of these things could go. And so, like, was there a vision for it? The only thing that I kind of kept coming back to was, like, the words right next to each other, lamentation, jubilation. Because, like, it seems kind of like a requiem for Earth to me. I mean, like, it's like there's lots of, like, major chord tonalities and stuff that feel positive, but, like, my favorite songs are sad songs. I don't know why, and I can't really, and I think I'm a pretty positive person, but, like, there's something about it that just seemed like these are cool pieces of music that seem to match the earthly cultural moment as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And like I said, lamentation, jubilation, like, there's lots to mourn and there's lots to celebrate. And that's kind of as much of a directive as I had. And, as long as things stay chaotic, like, I'll have the inspiration to continue to write more of these things.
Oh, yeah. Well, the world will create some great music as we all suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to be the way that it is. I'll say that as far as a piece of work that inspired me directly, there is a Jim O'Rourke record called The Visitor, which is one of these things. He outdid me. I think his weighs in, I'm looking right now, his weighs in at 38.05. So he was either drinking more coffee than I was, or just has less, he just has more of an attention span, but
he's more worried about the world than you are.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I really, that piece of music, if anyone likes what I made and they're curious, that is a really, really, really special piece of work. And, you know, it's out there. I don't think Jim does business with Spotify, but I think it's out there on Apple, or somewhere else. But it's so special, and it's one big piece. And it really blew me away when I first heard it. It came out, it looks like in 2009, which is crazy to say that out loud. But yeah, it's something I've always come back to, and I'm really inspired by it. And I'll say I don't know, I don't think this means anything because my record was basically done by the time I saw this. But some months ago, I saw Bill Frisell play at the Ace Theater downtown LA. And I have seen so many Bill shows. It's embarrassing to even imagine how many I've seen. But I'm a huge fan. And I've seen lots of, interpretations of his work. But this show that I saw was interesting in that it was 2 rhythm sections flanking him. So it was basically bass and drums in stereo. And they did the same thing. They synthesized all of these cool Bill compositions into one big wave, and it never stopped. And I just thought, oh, this is like, I'm actually on the vanguard of, like, there's like a new flavor happening right now. It seems cool, like, you know, to be giving people something more long form. And I'll also say, like, this was not my inspiration or like my ambition, but I do think, speaking for just admitting this to the world, I'm certainly not alone. Like, my mind and my attention span has been kind of reformatted and cannibalized by my phone.
Sure.
And I realize now that, like, I feel happy to give people, like, the challenge to put their phones down or put them in silent for 20 minutes. And, like, I hope, best case scenario, I mean, I hope people like it, but I hope that people will also, like, say, oh, like, if I want to do this thing, I have to do it all at once. And my hope is that they do that with their screens turned off or their ringers turned off or whatever.
I saw the instructions in the liner notes.
Yeah, you gotta, if you can lay down, all the better. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I think these things are more and more important, whether or not mine is in the canon of things that can sweep you out of your digital daily doses or whatever you want to say. Like, I hope it is.
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think it's cool, but I don't know. I think there's a need for it. And it's funny, like, everyone that I played it for, certainly no one says, like, oh man, why didn't you just break these up into parts, you know?
Sure.
But the cool thing is too, is that there's going to be, so I'm officially on R&R Digital, which is a label run by Ben Persky, who is my manager when I play with Dijon. And it's the same label that Dijon and McGee are on. I'm very happy about that, but they're indulging me in the pressing of vinyl. And I truly didn't plan for this either, but at the exact midpoint of the composition, there is a breath that lasts for 4 seconds.
Okay.
Which I just did because I felt like it was necessary. I felt like I needed a break, or like my ears needed a break or whatever. So this is only worth mentioning because the vinyl will have a side A and B, and luckily the composition just served that idea perfectly.
That's awesome.
But for those who stream, there will only be the one thing.
When does the vinyl come out?
The vinyl, the 17th is when it was all cut loose. And so it'll be on streaming, but that's the day that vinyl pre-orders happened.
Okay.
Or happened, depending on how we decide.
Yeah.
When you decide to release this, you know, what version of reality, future or present or past we're talking about. But yeah, you can. There's going to be a pre-order, and we have I'm also working with this record maker I don't know what you would call them, like a vinyl making. I don't know what you would call that, like a vinyl press. I should know how to say that. Like a
lathe, is a pressing
yeah,
plant, whatever.
yeah, pressing plant. So they're called After Hours Records, and they are. I met them because they're really, really big Dijon fans, and they have extended this really cool thing to me where for anyone that's wanted to make records or has tried to do that in the past, they know that the amount buy-ins tend to start at 500 before, but that's like when it starts making economic sense to press records. But they're really cool, and we have this idea that like the first run will be 250, and if there's need for a second batch, they'll just come out in batches of 250. So, if I only sell 250, that's fine. And I kind of love the idea of that in a way, because there will only be 250 of them. And I won't have to be, they won't have to languish in a closet for the next however long.
Sure.
Because one of the great curses of making records, is like everyone wants the vinyl, but if you have to buy 500 or 1,000 of them, it is just it's a plight that everyone, I think, that's tried to do it is really familiar with, where like you're happy they exist, but you kind of can't wait to get rid of them. So I like the idea of doing a batch production. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You, unless that rolling capo is really sophisticated, you sing on this record, I believe.
I do, yeah. Yeah. Dude, yeah. Wait till they make the singing capo. What'll we do then? I do sing, and I guess back to the idea of lamentation, jubilation. There's a Ry Cooder song that really. This one, I mean, the whole thing is great. It's called, it is called No Hard Feelings. And I sang a stanza of it. It's a very short piece. I don't even think it's not, now I think about it, it's not even a full one of the verses, but there's this little section where he seems to really, he definitely beat me to saying a really well condensed version of like what I think, could be like a well-wishing or like hopefully not like a sign off for civilization or something, or like the collective burden of civilization. But, I think it's a really cool mantra and prompt to try to be a decent person and not leave too much wreckage in your wake. And I mean, I couldn't find a way to say it better myself. So I got to sing his words, and we also, Tyler and I, very deliberately, there's a solo section in that part, which is kind of the only solo on the piece. And we basically just we composed around his exact solo as well. Hopefully
it's pretty cool.
He's not too mad about that. But I guess also my thought is like, if he ever even hears it to be mad in the first place, then it's a huge success.
He could hear it. We have Ry Cooder ties. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, you and I spent a whole day with him not too long ago, but I feel like like if he hears it organically in the world, then now we're talking,
Playing at the Bristol Farms while he's shopping.
That would be great. That'd be great. Yeah. I mean, time will tell. Hopefully he's flattered. I think I did an okay job of rendering it.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the recording process, like gear used, was it all these J Spliss pedals that you've been taking out on the road, or was it a little more organic and old school?
Yeah, that's a great question. We didn't use anything other than, my guitar was a J Mascis Squire Jazzmaster. in the middle position because, as we all know, that's the one that relieves us of the hum.
Mm-hmm.
But that straight into Tyler's Clark, I think it's called a Beaufort, I think, something like that. But it's a Tweed Deluxe, is what it is. And in like playing gigs, like it can be helpful to have amps that have reverb, but I find that Tweed Deluxes they've very quickly become a favorite amp of mine, because there's an immediacy there. There's just less in the way as far as the circuit is concerned, or that's how I interpret it. It feels a little bit more expressive and responsive. And yeah, my guitar is just a Tweed Deluxe with nothing in front of it. And his pedal steel is mostly a PV Nashville 400, I think. But, it's interesting. It's interesting to listen back to because, like, one may not know this all the time, but most of the time, the guitar sounds are the sound of the amps as loud as possible in Tyler's studio. And, if you play with your volume rolled back a little bit, like the Tweed can stay clean for a surprisingly long time. And then there's like one section of the piece where I shred a little bit, or like it gets a little dirgy or brooding or whatever. And that's just the same settings, but just the volume on my guitar rolled all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, we of course, like my friend Rob Shelton, who mixed the record, he did a good job he did a great job mixing it. But my main prompt is like, I want this to feel like you're seeing it in like a junior college auditorium, so like just enough place reverb instead of, no, I don't want there to be any like splashy reverb tanks or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. Like my taste, I used to be really dedicated to the Jim Campolongo approach of just like Princeton, a lot of reverb, occasionally using some trem. And then I got a Fretboard Journal subject. My friend Dylan Day, basically like would like make fun of me for my reliance on reverb. And the more I heard him play, and he's so magical, but the more I heard him play, the more I understood what he was talking about. And then like finally, when it came time to make the record, I was just like, let's just see if his logic holds here. And it did. And then shortly thereafter, I bought my own. Mm-hmm. So that's all I play these days is a Tweed Deluxe. And I'll say this, Jason, who's that guy in Chicago that brought those amazing amps to the summit? The downstairs guy who had like, he brought a really wild collection.
Kevin in Ohio from the Truth About Vintage Amps podcast.
Yeah. So Kevin from Ohio,
Kevin Lepley,
has this, I'm sure he still has it. It's this Tweed Deluxe that he had on display, and he would let people play through it.
Yes.
And I had already bought mine like right before that trip, but I got to play that amp through a few speakers that he had lying around too, with a few different cabs. And I don't know, just that experience was so, what's the word, like confirmational in the way that like, I just couldn't believe how versatile and how incredible it sounded through every single configuration that he would set me up with. I hope he comes back obviously this year. I hope I get to play that amp again, and hope others do too.
I think we have a new batch of amps this year. So
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. That was a great chamber. It was a good place to go hang out.
Yeah. I going back to what you said, I feel like some modeling company needs to have the junior high school auditorium reverb as preset.
Yeah.
I think that's overdue.
Yeah. Like
community college. That's what you said.
Community college library preset. There are some companies I'm still trying to make my vision and my perception of all of these like current production technologies, like I'm trying to get a better handle on it, because even though I do play this Tweed Deluxe, like I do have to use reverb, and I think some companies make amazing things, and I think some not so much. But there's a trend that's happening now that's like people are going in on what are called convolution reverbs, which are, you know, basically like spatial images of or spatial renderings of physical places. And more, I just find like, just for my own ears, like that version of reverb is cooler to me than like a really present tank.
Interesting.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, all that stuff is exciting. And I think also my friend Mike Gordon, who plays under the name McGee, he's going the kind of opposite direction, which is really leaning into technologies of the 80s and 90s to get his sounds. And he has inspired me to do a really ridiculous thing, which is seek out an Eventide H3000 harmonizer and see. I mean, I can't find one for a good price yet.
Okay.
But if I can, I'd be curious to kind of like have a ridiculous era where I like cart a rack around for a while, because I think it's just true. Like those things, those devices still just sound the best for some reason. I don't know what it is.
You want me to edit this part out so that it doesn't jack up the prices for you?
Oh, I mean, you maybe. Well, I'll keep you posted. Like if I get one, leave it. But you know, the time will tell.
Yeah. The last time I think most people hearing this have heard your voice was during the a year ago, the G. Weller podcast. And you and G. Weller label head Dory seem to have some friction, but Dory's on this record.
It's true. Yeah. Dory and I have come full circle, and he's a truly gifted musician, and he contributes the instruments, the instrumental elements that I don't have a handle on. So he plays some celeste and some farfisa and string stuff. And yeah, I mean, for sure, going back to that whole thing, like if you had told me that we would even be speaking months after that, I wouldn't believe you, not to mention that I would feel good enough about our relationship to invite him to play on my album. But he did, and I'm really happy for him too. He's a great dude, and he's been making some cool headway and some good waves playing with Blake. Blake's been taking him on tour, and they did a really cool run in Japan as a duo, which is like, I wish I was there for that. And I'm going to try to get him to just be more involved in my thing in a live capacity. And if he's got the time, then I think everyone will benefit, because he's really a special player. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I know the story, but why don't you give the story of the album cover?
Oh, so the album cover is a photo of my dad on what would that was his. I mean, there was more to the photo in the background, but we scooped him out of the, there was like a 21 Jump Street style brick wall and some banners and stuff, but the banners would have said Ricks is 40. People call my dad the Ricks, and oftentimes people from San Diego will often call me that too. But the funniest part about that image is like, it was what was used for the invitation for his 40th birthday. And my dad passed away years ago, but his sister Kathy is great, and she's my awesome Aunt Kathy. And we were talking about, so this party went down at the Belly Up in San Diego, Solana Beach, and it was a crazy party, and it went on seemingly for days. And mission accomplished. Like my dad really did blow out the zip code and just make it insane. And I think all the parents of kids that I knew were hungover for a week or something. But we were talking the other day about the party, and I said, like, Aunt Kathy, wasn't that so crazy? Because she came down for it. Her and her husband Neil came down for it. And I said, man, wasn't that a crazy party and such a cool thing that my dad did? And she said, well, yeah, dude, it was awesome. But the funniest part about that is that at the time that photo was taken and at your dad's, quote, 40th birthday party, he was actually 42. But, but just full like George Hamilton style. Like he wanted to be just all the more accomplished and kind of like polished than his peers, I guess, in this city in San Diego that we moved to. So my dad was masquerading as a 40-year-old in spite of the fact that he was 42. And I mean, for those who knew him, like, it's funny because it just totally tracks.
Yeah.
It's the only other person I've ever seen lie about their age was a woman from Texas that I knew while I lived in Seattle, and we were watching a movie at her place, and the door knocked, and it was the census, and she went to the door, and I think at the time she was probably like 33 or something, but in front of this crew of people that were all watching this movie, she opens the door and says, "I'm so sorry, I don't have time to participate in the census fully, but yes, my name is blank." And they said, "Okay, cool. We just want to confirm your age. You're, whatever, whatever age she was. Let's say it was 33." And she said, in this really funny reactionary way, "Oh no, I'm sorry. You have that. You're mistaken. I'm actually 29." And then she shut the door, and we were all just like, "What? Like, why did you do that?" And she said, "I actually don't know, other than to say I am vain and I'm a woman from Texas, and it's like culturally the thing that, like, number one, you never ask a woman her age, and number two, you always just want to be younger, And so my dad, somehow, some way, it's just God knows why, tapped into that same mentality and wanted to be forever young. And I don't know, that image is funny for me. I mean, it's such an iconic image in my life, but it's funnier knowing now that he's actually 2 years older than he was claiming to be at the time.
It's wild.
Yeah.
You gonna play this record live anywhere?
I am, dude. I mean, I before the record was done, we played, me, Tyler, the bassist Carl McComas Reichel, who played on the recording as well, and Henry Quapis, the drummer. We played it at Zebulon last year, and it was a really special thing, and a lot of people were moved by it. I saw some tears, which was surprising and special for me. And even more special was that there was this batch of kids that I was encountering in the audience, or the kids, I mean, they're adults, but they're certainly way younger than I am, but they're Dijon fans, and some of them drove up from like Orange County, and some of them drove down from the Bay Area to see it. And I was really moved by that. As far as moving forward, Tyler and I are both in Lizzy's band and Ryan's band, so we're going to be together a ton this year. Can I play a release show right now? I wish I could. I just can't. We're deep in rehearsals. I think moving forward, there might be a little place in Chicago in August that we'll attempt to play, hopefully.
You're coming to the Fretboard Summit. Don't bury the lead.
It rhymes with the Fretboard Summit.
Uh-huh.
And I think, I mean, it's funny. Like, I would love to play shows leading up to that, but I just don't think that we have time.
Okay.
So I guess my job in between now and then will be to have quiet moments in hotel rooms and hopefully write more pieces that'll at least have the next one more chambered up, because I really think this is a format that I want to stay in. Like, I want to just continue to make these kind of, whatever you call them. Like, I actually don't know what you call them, but just like extended pieces that allow people some time away from the traditional way of listening to music. And Ben from the label seems to be supportive and excited about that idea and that format. Mm-hmm. So yeah, as much as I wish I could write a devastating 3-minute verse chorus song, like, I can't do it. Something about it. Or maybe I just don't try enough. I don't know, but my mind tends to lean towards, like, retroactively digging for these little gems that involve things like the open B string.
Yeah. Rolling capos.
That's right, dude. So that's what's up. I mean, I'm really excited. It feels funny in a way to be doing this so far along into having a career in music, but like it also seems like it's totally the right time, and I think it happened in a cool way. And as far as like, yeah, as far as everything being in its right place, like I think it really did, for whatever reason, just take the exact amount of time that it took for me to realize that all of these like incoherent but cool ideas that I had were deeply related and very much wanting to connect with one another.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully I'll have a little bit more sharp perspective and a little bit more foresight in like, you know, the way that my mind operates, so I can do the next one in the next year or something like that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. This was great.
Thank you. I'm so excited about it, and I'm happy to be on this side of the screen this time. It's a real honor.
Congrats on the album.
Thanks, man.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. That was my chat with Ryan Richter. What did you think? Drop me a line, podcast@fretboardjournal.com. We have a new Truth About Vintage Amps podcast coming very, very soon. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for next week's podcast. The lineup, the fun we're having with this show is so cool, and I love hearing from you all. So thank you for tuning in to the Fretboard Journal podcast.